On this video, we're going to learn about how to use the while loop. For an example program, I'm going to have us get a number from a user and double it. And we're going to do that over and over and over again. And that's what a loop is valuable for, is when you want to do something over and over again. Here I've written the code to just happen one time. So let's make sure we understand how it works just once. So I run the program. It says enter a number. So I enter the number 7. And it comes up and says your number doubled is 14. Thank you, come again. Press any key to continue. Looks like I need a carriage return there. So I'll put one in there. So now if I want to do this over and over again, then I want to use a looping structure. And when you're going to loop, what you need to do is decide what needs to go inside the loop and what needs to go outside the loop. So those instructions that only need to happen once should be outside the loop, and the instructions that you want to have happen over and over again should be inside the loop. So let's look at each instruction and see which one they fit in. So here we're defining two variables. That is something you do not want to happen over and over again. For sure that needs to be outside the loop because it only needs to happen one time. Here we're getting a value from the user. We're going to have to do that every time we want a number. We're going to have to get it from the user. So this is going to happen over and over again. Here we're multiplying the number they entered by 2. Again, we're going to have to do that for every single number. So that's going to happen over and over again. And here we report what the result was. And that we want to do with each number. So that'll happen over and over again. Here we simply say goodbye, thanks for coming. This is something we only want to do one time. So that's going to go outside the loop. So once you've decided what needs to go in, well, first you need to decide what you want the program to do. And then you need to figure out which parts of it need to happen once and make sure those go outside the loop, and which parts of it need to happen over and over again and those need to go inside the loop. So now we have an idea of what things need to happen inside the loop. All right, so once we've done that, then we need to create a loop, and the kind of loop that we're going to use is called a while loop, and you start with the keyword while, and then in parentheses you're going to put a condition. And these conditions are just like the ones we used with if statements. They are expressions that result in true or false. So we need some sort of expression that is true when we want to continue with the loop and is false when we want to stop. And that's how loops work. If they test the condition, if it's true, they execute everything in the loop. If it's false, they do nothing in the loop. And then as soon as they're done, they go back up, ask the question again. Is it true? They do everything in the loop. So we need here a condition that is true when we want to keep going. Okay, and false when we want to stop. Okay, so true when we want to keep going and false when we want to stop. Well, how are we going to tell when to keep going? What we're going to do this time, there are multiple ways we can do this, but let's go ahead and say let's leave the user in charge and tell them that whenever they enter a 0, then we'll quit. So we can use this value here, so we can make the condition while number is not equal to 0. Okay, so while number is not equal to 0, then we want to keep going. That's true, right? If it's not equal to 0, then we want to keep going. As soon as it hits 0, then this expression becomes false and we will stop. So there's our condition that is true when we want to keep going and false when we want to stop. This is called a sentinel value. So it's when we pick a single value that we use to signal time to stop. All right, so the next thing we need to do is get this loop started. So we need to make sure that number is not equal to 0 when we start, or that if it's equal to 0, we really want to stop. So where do we get a value for number? Here we've defined it, but we've not given it a value. So how do we get a value for number? Well, in our code, we're getting the value from the user. So we need to put this up here, and this needs to come then before the while loop. It needs to be up here because we need to make sure we can get into the while loop. So starting the loop is important. This is also called, another name for this that is commonly used is prime the loop. And that really means get ready to start the loop. So how do we do that? So we get a number from the user, and then we can tell, did the number they entered, is it 0 or not? If it's not 0, then we'll stop the loop. Now with the while loop, like with other of these constructs, we will use an opening curly brace and a closing curly brace, and inside that we'll put all of the instructions that we want to do when we're inside the loop. So what do we want to do? We test the number to make sure it's not equal to 0. The work that we need to do is to double it. So this is part of our work right here. So we need to double the number. The other part of our work that we need to do is to report it to the user. And so this becomes then our work. So prime the loop, and then inside the loop we're going to do the work. And the last thing that we need to do is to stop the loop. All right, we need to provide a way for the loop to stop. Let me show you what happens if you don't. So let's just say that we get the loop started and we double the number, and now I'm going to run this. So we get the loop started, we decided what was inside and outside the loop, we got the loop started, and we did the work. So here I go, I run it, it comes up and it asks me what's the number, and I say the number is 22 or 37, and I push enter. And what happens? It's going over and over. Let me stop this. It's going over and over and over again. So we got into this loop, the number was 37, and we simply went through the loop. Every time we went through the loop, this condition was true because number was not equal to 0. This is called an infinite loop. So when you get a loop that repeats over and over and over again, that's called an infinite loop. And that's what we had going on there, was an infinite loop. So we don't want that. So the next thing we need to do is we need to provide a way to stop the loop. So here I'm going to put a way to stop the loop. Now I automatically put this inside the loop. Is that really where we want it? Is this something we want to happen over and over again, or only once? Well, it turns out we need to be able to have the choice to stop the loop every single time we go through it. All right, notice we only have to get the loop started once, so it is outside the loop. Once we get started, then it'll keep looping until we stop it. But every time through the loop, we want to provide a way to stop. Well, how do we stop this loop? We stop it by getting number equal to 0. Where do we get number from? We get it from the user. So what we're going to do here is we're going to simply get the value of number, and so here we prompt the user for it with an input prompt, and then we do get the value, and now we have the value for number. One more thing here, we want to tell the user that how they get out. So we want to say enter a number, and let's tell them how they get out. Enter 0 to quit. They might not know that that's the decision that we had made, or the Sentinel value that we were going to use. All right, let's see how that works now. So if I run it, it says enter a number. So I put in 23, push enter. Oh, it says your number doubled is 46. Enter a number and enter 0 to quit. 14. It tells me the double. 51. 9. It tells me the number double of 9,387, and I can keep going now as long as I want to and get as many numbers as I want, but every single time it gives me a way to quit. All I have to do is press 0 and it quits. Goes outside the loop and says thank you, come again. All right, let's review the important things that we need to make a while loop work. We need to decide what needs to go inside the loop and what needs to go outside. It's often a good idea to make your code happen one time so you know that you can do something one time, and then decide how to make it repeat. So first we decide what goes inside and what goes outside. Then we create a condition that is true when we want to keep going and false when we want to stop. Then we prime the loop, or make sure we have a valid value to start the loop. Once we get inside the loop, we do the work. and then we provide a way to stop the loop.